And a hearty good afternoon, everybody. At least if you're in the East Coast, it is afternoon. If you're somewhere else, it could be happy hour or it could even be coffee hour, whatever you are. I'm David Solomon. I'm in Montreal. He's Stuart Brisgel. He's in Florida for at least another 24 more hours, and then he's leaving us again for a little while. But we are so happy and thrilled that you are here on the Rant Network, where we're on every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And listen, for the last year and a half or plus, we have been ranting and we've been angry and we've been really attacking and, going after the topics and the issues that folks, may not be popular, may get you into trouble with your neighbors and friends. I know it has. Stuart, I got a phone call this morning about someone who said, you're pretty damn controversial, you and that Brisgel guy. And I said, yeah, that's nice. Thank you so much. But we enjoy what we do and we enjoy diving into the topics that make certain people uncomfortable. And here's another example. This isn't in the news. Stuart, you and I had this conversation, and since this morning, I've been really excited to have this conversation, this rant, because I volunteered for about 17 years as a coach. I worked with kids, teenagers, preteens, you name it. And it's a fascinating thing to see how kids will talk to their coach, will listen to their coach, will seek advice from their coach, but will never go to their parents and ask them the same question. And in today's day and age, with the internet, with everything, kids are more apt to go and look online for information, seek advice, rather than talk to their parents, except for the people that they, how do I put this, care for, respect, admire, or even those who will listen. Stuart, it sounds like too simplistic a time and an easier time frame, I guess, but let's talk you. Why don't you share your experience?
Thanks, David. And normally we have this vitriol anti, just got to show and poke, people in the eyes over how stupid a lot of stuff is. But, you know, this past weekend ended up being a little bit more of an emotional weekend for me and for many, many kids, Dave, that I grew up with in Montreal, the West Island specifically. And I'm going to steal one of my greatest friends, my lifelong friend in Montreal, Jason Tremelin, who just had a celebration of life for his just passing of his father, but also a couple years ago was for his mother. So he's now officially you know one of the head of the households with his brother and sister, him being the youngest of the three. And in that conversation that he started in eulogizing, his father, who was Lawson Tremelin, there were a lot of things about him that I never knew, growing up in that house. But I always used to say growing up in that house was an institution of sorts where his mother, and his father in part, but his mother would sit there for hours listening to us, all the misspent youth characters, all the guys with the white t-shirts, maybe for fun. There's a picture of us sitting in this veranda that may have been like 15 by 25 that, in the summertime was a home of all of us juvenile delinquents, boys and girls, the backyard where we had the most incredible historical parties. And what Jason, did is he used a terminology that I just got to talk about. And it was called the hub. His house was the hub. What do I mean by the hub? We all would converse there 7 days a week from any time of morning, noon, or night, and would congregate there. And, this is pre cell phones, pre pagers, where pre cars, where we had bikes and 10 speeds and BMXs. And, it's where the misspent youth was. It was a trusted, safe house, a house where things that would go on that may not be so acceptable today because parents are too uptight, politicals, biases are taking the foreground, where growing up is taking the background. No one really is there for these kids, Dave. Dave, look, you got 3 20-year-olds. I got 3 teenagers. You got all boys. I got girls and a guy, and it's very different. And one thing that you always ask yourself, you don't want to screw up your kids too much. How many mistakes are you making? But people don't necessarily go to their parents to have the conversation, and nor I am no exception to the rule. I used to reach out to my uncle Billy. You remember Billy Hitzig? He also passed this past year. And, you know, it's kind of emotional because, again, when I used to sit down with Barbara's Mrs. T, you had to kiss her on the nose, right? The house, it's where people smoke and drank and made out and, caused all kinds of nuisances, right? But that house was a safe house. Hey, I didn't get along with my parents that day. I didn't agree with what my parents wanted me to do. Go talk to Mrs. T. She'll make it better. It's not that she disagreed with your mom or dad, not that she agreed, but talking to this woman, right? Mrs. T, her name was Barbara Tremelin, you felt like $1 million. And then if it was too off the wall, Mr. T, aka Trem, would make sure you knew your place. So if you ran out of beer, don't touch Mr. T's beer because he'll hit you in the head. But that's not why I'm really bringing this up, Jay. Besides having a hub, I don't see kids today having that safe haven, having that family where you can just go and hang out and be yourself, express yourself. Didn't matter your race, color, creed, your religious background, your political background. No one cared, David. No one cared at all. In fact, it was such a melting pot that, you know what? We celebrated all the holidays, everyone together. It was amazing. It was the greatest misspent youth that was so innocent that I cannot even begin to get across in this rant. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it up to Montreal for this quote celebration of life where all my friends that grew up, some of them are film stars, right? Famous now movie stars in Marvel comics and in Paramount projects. Quote me if I'm wrong. It was on a Paramount project. Shanker will probably kill me for mentioning this because now people may understand his age. Considering the guy's got the greatest genetics and DNA. Other people that worked in not for profits and massive like Kenny, people from Toronto, Vancouver, they all flew up to be a part of the celebration of life because that's what this household did for everyone. And again, there's not just my generation, it's his brother's generation and his generation. And this sort of family production, I don't see it anywhere else. It's not my house, it's none of my kids' friends' houses. David, I don't know. Your house was it a hub?
You know what? I won't call it a hub to the extent that you just described the Tremellans, and I think that's kind of admirable. But I want to tell you that as the kids grew older, some of them did speak with my wife and I. I found it actually kind of funny because I have very dear friends, very close friends, childhood friends that they're my children are friends as well, and I remember one incident in particular where one of the kids came up to us, didn't agree with his parents, started the conversation by saying, "Hey, you probably wouldn't agree with me because you're good friends with my parents." And I'm like, "Well, no, then don't talk to me. Like, if you're going to come into me like that, then don't talk to me. Like, if you want our advice, I'll give it to you, and I'll give it to you uncensored." And at the end of the conversation, he came to me and says, "You know what? I didn't think I'd get it quite like that. I just expect you to decide with my parents. And while you may not have agreed with me, you gave me something to think about." And again, our role is not. I mean, I love my kids and I adore them and whatever, but I also know that they're, at times they want to hear it from somebody else. And I wish that my kids would have had a place like the Tremellans. I wish other kids would have a place like that. I know that some kids feel comfortable talking to other adults, but
Yep.
a place like what you just described, Stuart, is few and far. And I think that the problem really has become and again, I'm not an expert in this, is I think we've really screwed up the kids. And I think that the kids have been screwed up to the point where, I mean, we're making them afraid to go and talk to somebody. Your feelings, you need to go to a therapist. I mean, like, and again, I'm not against therapy. Therapy is important. It's very, 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 very important. But just to talk about everyday stuff, sometimes sitting with a friend's parents, man, that
Shay,
could do so much.
Jason was not even home. He may have been out. Go over, see Mrs. T, have her famous chocolate chip cookies. She'd
Hmm.
give you a drink. You would
Yeah.
sit in the living room, and whatever it was, she didn't call your parents either. She was
No.
there as a sounding
But
board.
that's it. But that's
She'd
it.
go,
That was the
Stuart,
beauty.
I think that's a good idea. Maybe you should be a little this. Or she would just listen and be there. And if you got out of line, man, you knew it.
Yeah, but that's the thing that it's like we're afraid today to talk to kids because look what ends up happening. Okay, a school teacher, a teacher says something to a child. I'm going to sue your ass. My father knows it about it, and like a teacher's scared. A
Yeah.
parent is scared because they're going to get these kids are like, one thing is a hug is an amazingly powerful thing, and I don't know if Mrs. Tremelin or Mr. Tremelin, you give you a handshake, a hug, or
Oh,
whatever.
you always would have to give her a hug.
Yeah.
You'd have to kiss her on the nose. She'd sit
Yeah,
there like this.
unfortunately, but you know what? That's lost today because the parents are being told, don't touch, don't this, don't this, and we freaked out the kids. And I think that what the therapists are great, but and I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. I coached for 17 years. I've had kids come up to me and ask me some really interesting questions, advice on stuff, and I promised them, look, it's between you and me. We're not getting parents involved. We're not talking about anything. And it's fascinating how when you have their respect, and I think you respected Mr. and Mrs. Tremelin to the extent that whatever they had said, you took it to heart. You may not have agreed, but you took it to heart. And I think that that's where you find the right teacher, the right coach, the right friend, the right parent who could sit with you and talk to you about that. And you know, we're not just here, to give business advice, and I'm not here to give, whatever. If someone wants to chat, I'm always listening. I'm always willing to help, whatever. But I gotta tell you how many parents I've heard just freak their kids out, can't trust, can't rely upon. Maybe, oh, his political views are too eccentric. Maybe, but the coin always has two sides. Life has so many different ways of looking at it. And yet, by sitting there and only expecting your child to go and talk to someone who 100% agrees with you, I don't think you're not letting your child evolve and grow and learn and open their eyes. And I'm sure I would have loved to have had a conversation with the Tremelins. I would have been curious to see what they had to say because I know some of the people that you hung out with back as kids, and I can only imagine if that they kept coming back, what
Dude,
the Tremelins probably added to your lives, guys.
Jason, with a tear in chin, with a tear in chin, I got to tell you, I had the greatest growing up as an adolescent that any kid could have. And you know what? It wasn't getting a brand new BMW at 16. It was everything about growing up and having the friends and connections that were created out of this house. And it's David, look, we grew up, we were friends, but at this house was something so unique and so special. It's like the end of a dynasty that I
Yeah,
cannot see being recreated.
I
And like you
I
stopped me
know.
from saying the greatest years. I mean, oh, it was better. I'm not saying that. And though I want to say that, but then I
And for
sound like
you,
my parents.
but you know what, Stuart, for
But
you,
it's not just
it
me.
was
It's not
great.
just me. It's and there are hundreds of kids that
Hmm.
went through this house between Jason and Greg uh,
I'm
that
sure.
were touched by this house. I got to tell you, I don't know anyone that would have anything different than from this. Dave, thank you for letting me talk about this. We've
Listen,
made our quarter hour. My
I'm going to
cousin
tell you.
Rupert will be upset that this is so non-political,
Listen,
and
Stuart,
so
Stuart, I
out of my
think that
radar.
Stuart, I think, to Jason, whom I've only met a couple of times, I wish him well. And his only have fond memories of his parents. They sounded like wonderful people. And I hope that you and your friends also remember the Tremellans the way you just described. And I wish for our children and for others to find those kinds of connections in their future, and to hold on to that kind of sentiment. Stuart, with that, we wish you all a wonderful week, and I will catch you on Wednesday.